Good morning. Welcome to Hudson River Computing, Inc. And why is it time to migrate from a premise-based ERP system to a cloud system? There's a lot of different advantages we're going to talk a little bit about today. We're looking at it primarily from the user standpoint, as far as ease of use and capability. So we're going to actually proceed here. So with that being said, I am having trouble getting the slide to go forward. There we go. Okay, so meeting context. Here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about a little bit what our clients have found that have migrated to the cloud product that we carry from our premise-based product, and what we discovered and what they discovered, and what they fed back to as far as information is that they find the product much easier to use. And that sounds like a big, minor deal, but it allows you to get more out of the system. For example, they're able to get much more of their data out of the system in a format they can use. It's more interactive. It allows them to actually get it more quickly. They're not dependent upon other departments and things to get it out, or other things like that. And the dashboards and things like that tend to be a lot more interactive in the way the information is presented. So when you see something, you can click on it, drill down, go back to the transaction. And while the premise-based systems had some of that, they didn't have the extent of it that's available in today's systems. And that's kind of the three major pieces that he kind of found. So here's how it'll save you time, okay, which is kind of the important part of what we get into. So when we get into this, we'll see that we have ERP provides an easier use of easier maintenance schedule. If you need to do an upgrade, it used to be a process where you'd have to go through and discuss upgrading and get servers in place and hardware, desktops, etc. In today's world, basically you need a browser, and it's relatively straightforward from the standpoint of that. For the actual upgrade, you just contact the cloud company and say, "Hey, I'm ready to upgrade." Okay, and it's pretty straightforward. There's more adjustment to the user, meaning that they can use whatever desktop they want. It could be an Apple, Mac, it could be a Windows desktop, it could be a Google desktop, it could be etc. Anything that can run a browser, right? So those all sound like minor details, but it gives you much more flexibility. In addition to that, the screens themselves can be adjusted much more easily than they can in the premise-based. And so you can easily adjust the screen as far as how things get entered and things like that, make it easier for the end user. Last but not least, I can't stress enough the data access, getting to the information within your system through dashboards and queries and reports and the drill downs. Extremely powerful, extremely powerful. For today, we're going to actually use two different products for the comparison. Microsoft Dynamics GP, which we have actually been a reseller for since 1993. And it's been a great product for us, but there's some detriments to it. And in particular, it's more the age of the product at this point, meaning that it became more and more difficult for them to build the newer technologies into the product. And because of that, the product is, kind of behind as far as its ability to keep up with what the newer products can do today. The other product we're going to do is the product we carry is actually Acumatica. And that product has been out since 2009. We've been a reseller from 2015, so 9 years at this point. It's been a great product for us. And one of the great things about the product is flexibility, ease of use, and these things that we kind of hear about the newer cloud products, ease of maintenance, et cetera. And so we're not going to make it too complex today. We're going to talk about kind of both products in a lot of detail. So what we're going to do now is actually going to go into the demonstration real quick between the two products, show some of the things why there's advantages for one over the other, and then last but not least, who is at Hudson River Computing and who is at Acumatica. So that's what we're going to do today. So for the demo, I'm just going to start. So let me just hit escape here and minimize. I'm going to actually start with the GP product line, okay? And with that being said, oops, I got to get to the right window here. I'm going to switch windows I'm sharing, so hold on a second. And we're going to switch over, and we're going to pick screen 3, click share, and minimize this. and bring back Dynamics GP. So with that, what you're looking at here is what Dynamics GP looks like and has looked like for a number of years. This is one of the later versions of the product. It works well. It does a lot of things well. But if you notice, this is kind of a very basic homepage. When we look at it real quick, we can see here we have some basic information. We can see this week's invoices, receivables today, etc. And I can click and drill on these. So if I click on it, I'll say this week's invoices. I click on it. And in the case of GP, it takes me in the smart list. Now, one of the things about this is everything comes back to smart list. Okay, so what happens is whatever transactions you're looking for, you'll see here, it's all in one location. So throughout this product, it's all kind of in one spot. It has listings of transactions, master records, things like that. It's relatively straightforward to use. Again, if I highlight this transaction, double click on it, you'll see that it does open up and give me the ability to open up the transaction and look at the transaction. And just like GP looked like for a number of years, has a ribbon bar at the top, has your header information for the transaction, and then your transaction details. And to give you kind of an idea, we can go to different windows within this. So you can see here different holds, user-defined fields, distributions, commissions, etc. And the bottom line is we kind of have to bounce around to see it all. So in the case, if I want to open this up and look at a document ID, I can click on it. It takes me to the document information. I can see how it's been paid, et cetera, along the way. If not, I can see kind of core information about the product, the ID type, et cetera. Additionally, if I need to look at the customer information, I can hit the expansion here, and this shows me the customer information for this particular transaction. Okay, so it's kind of the part that is very important. However, what you discover is everything is kind of another window. Okay, and I'm going to leave that. I'm going to say, I do not want to enter that, so I'm going to say no. So just to give you kind of that idea, everything is there. By the same token, on the line items, I can hit the expansion, okay? And I can go through kind of the detail there and go kind of one by one and see that information on the line item, all right? So it's kind of a little bit different as to how it works compared to what modern standards are. So to give you that kind of same idea of what it might look like to look at an invoice, I'm going to bounce over to Acumatica at the same time. So with that, you remember that here we have this window here. On top of that, we have the scenario where we're looking at the various lists. Within these lists, I'm going to come back to this in a second. We can do search, and you can say, oh, I want to search by what document type, beginning of the week, etc. Notice I'm pretty limited as to what I can search for. Okay, I have a total of 4, and I can only do kind of certain things with it. So if I pick a transaction, you'll notice here it is what it is. There's a couple more fields. So to give you an idea, it's relatively straightforward. We're looking at all the columns we have here. We can literally add any field we want into this array that's connected to this particular view. Okay, and the difference is here, though, it only allows the fields that we have in the system for this particular records. It doesn't allow us to easily add kind of disassociated things that we might be using a certain way that we want to connect. So that's kind of how that works, how it looks and goes by. And then you notice here we have limited ways to, we can set different select twos for sorting these records, okay, for the columns. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like here. Notice I'm going back and all my views are here. If I go from there and I click on ARJK, which is a different one, I click on the drill down, again, it takes me back to smart list every time. Okay, and depending on what we're trying to see and look at, etc., we can see varying amounts of information. We can sort it, we can do looks and lookups and things like that. But keep in mind, it is a kind of a cumbersome interface, right? This is how you sort the columns and all. Within Acumatica, and I am actually going to switch this time, okay, and share and go to screen 2. Okay, you can see here the page you come into within Acumatica. Typically, this is a dashboard. You can have as many dashboards as you want set up for various people within your organization. These are customizable, etc., just like they are in GP. But if you notice, they have a little bit more color to them. They're a little bit more flexible. They have a lot more pieces to them of what they can do. So when we look at this, and I click on this, I say I want to see total AR, total AR overdue. open SO amounts, if I click on this, for example, I can actually see these pieces of information. So if I click on total AR, it's taking me to more information. And these are set, in this case here, to go to the customer summary. And I'm going to go back to this. And you'll notice here, I'm still where I am. It's just opening up another window within my browser. If I look at my AR transactions, okay, and if I want to see them in certain ways, I can actually go to receivables, invoices, memos. Those are showing my AR transactions. Now, with that, it's going to take a second here. I haven't loaded this window yet today, so apparently it's going to take more than I thought. Okay, so in this case here, this shows you the list really quick. Okay, and with this, if I want to see it by due date or other ways, I can set up a tab. So I'm in receivables, AR, and say I only want to see the transactions from this month. So I can which is April of 24 in this case, for what we're doing. I can say I want to say is between 0401, oops, you have to type it right, 0401 2024, 0430 2024. Click OK, and you'll see it went down to 77 records here. All right, so it's very easy. If I want to eliminate overdue charges because they're not really sales per se, I can actually just click on here and say type, and I can say I don't want overdue charges and I don't want credits for write-offs. Click OK. Notice those disappeared. Okay, and I can start to see here I'm building this all up. You'll see here in these cases, these are all open transactions, meaning they haven't been paid. We have one that's on credit hold. Yeah, I don't want to see that either. Let's take out the credit hold. Okay, so if you notice, this works very much like what you would see in Excel. Okay, so with that, people are very custom. They adapt to it very easily. Now, if this is something I want to see all the time, right, I can actually click on save, and I can just say monthly, month to date invoices. Okay, just to make it straightforward. Okay, and click OK. And if you look, now I have a tab for that. So if I click over here to all records, you'll notice it goes back to all records. I have my overdue charges. I have 8,400 records. I go back to month to date. Notice it narrows it down very quickly and easily. If I want to sort it differently, I can do that as well. So if I want to look at this and say, you know what, I want to sort it by date, okay, or by due date. So I can actually do that sort and sort of descending, ascending, et cetera, very quickly and easily without changing my default pieces of what I've done. Additionally, because of the flexibility, I can rearrange the columns. And in Smartsheet, you can't really do that very easily. You have to actually go into kind of a design mode, which is kind of awkward and difficult to use. So in this case here, it's like, okay, I want to see the amounts before the customer order number, for example, or before the description. So I can actually take this over here, take this total amount, drag it where I want to place it. Okay. And then by the same token, I can take and say, what's the amount, and what that difference would be if there's a difference between like freight and taxes. Okay, so one's the sales amount of the line items, and one includes taxes and things like that. They could be the same. We're in a demo company, so you might not be doing sales tax because it's not connected up, but that gives you kind of a rough idea how easy it is to change that around. By the same token, if you look at it and say, you know what, I don't want the description to appear on here at all, I can actually click over here on the design of the columns and just literally take a look at the description and just move it out. And you'll see here it's available columns, but it's not selected. When I click OK, that disappears. So it's very easy to adjust this and tailor it how you want. Okay. Now, with that, one thing I didn't point out in GP, you can do here. If I click the Excel button here in GP, they have an export button. You can export it to Excel. Basically does the same function. Okay. And those are very much the same. The thing that's a little different, GP was set up so that it had to save things in one spot, and then you could move it around after the fact. Within Acumatica, notice here with my browser options, because using a browser, it says, what do you want to do with this file? And I can just open it, save it at a certain place, save it, etc. I'm going to click open, and I'm just going to open it up. It's going to go there. I'm fine with that. And that's a browser setting. That's not a setting from Acumatica. If I click over here, you'll see that it open it up in a typical Microsoft fashion. You have to enable the editing, etc. Oops. And of course, it moves it to another window when I did that, and enable content. So at this point, it has done a, oops, helps if I open it up. It has done a scenario where it's relatively straightforward. You'll notice that all the dates are dates, windows, numbers are numbers, etc. as you go across here. So it's worked out fairly easily, and it brings in the fields that I have selected, both for the records that I've selected, as well as the columns that I have selected. Okay, relatively straightforward. One of the other differences is that the system can be set up so that you can take any one of these and say, using OData as a newer technology that GP doesn't have, and you can actually refresh these directly from, oops, I could do if I could do that. I'll show you how to change that. So I'm going to change this query a little bit. And this is how easy it is to adjust things. I'll look at it and say, okay, do I want to expose it to OData? And I do, so that way I can make use of the functionality that I just talked about. So I'm going to click Save. I'm going to go back to viewing the query. Okay, so that's relatively straightforward. When it opens back up, you'll notice that nothing looks different. I'm going to pick my month-to-date invoices again, click my Excel button again. In this case here, it's going to take a second. And I'm going to click Save again, just like I did before. The difference is with the OData, if I make a change to any of this or I change the data along the way, okay, what's going to happen is it's going to automatically refresh the data from Acumatica. So the idea is it's kind of a newer technology that GP doesn't have privy to. And that's not a bad or good thing. It's just a timetable of when the products were designed as far as technology. So now if I go to my data and refresh, you'll see that, oops, I don't know why it's not working. That's weird. Anyway, normally I can click refresh all, and it would refresh that with refresh data from within Acumatica. So that's how that would typically not work when it doesn't work right. I've never had it not work, so I'm a little confused there. So anyway, I'll have to come back to that at some other point and figure it out. Additionally, you notice that I can open up these transactions just like I could in GP. It's a little different in the sense that in GP, you had everything kind of hidden behind separate windows, okay? And we have a little bit of that, but you notice here, this is like customer maintenance. It actually takes me to the customer master. So if I click on that and say the customer says, oh, you know what? We need to change the customer's terms from net 30 to another term. You actually go directly to the customer master without having to close the record and go from there. So it automatically opens up that customer master so it can do what we need to do with it. Okay, so if I wanted to change under financial, I wanted to change the terms, I can actually do that without any issues. I'm going to click this to 7 days, click Save and Close. Now, it's not going to change it on the transaction this time because this is a posted transaction. The terms were set at the time the transaction was posted. Okay. Additionally, you'll notice that we have everything kind of more open to us. And when I say the system is easier to use, people can more easily acknowledge it. So if we take a look here and we see details, I can very easily rearrange the columns just like I did a minute ago. And so, for example, if I go across here and say, you know what, I want the amount closer to this here, and I want the account closer because that's what I want to look at when I do this. And maybe the sub account, I believe, is over here. So we're going to put the sub account next to the account, and I'm going to put the description for the account next to the account as well. Okay, so I've rearranged that with very little work, and this is a data entry window. Okay, so for me, this is going to be set up that way. All right, now you'll notice here we've done a couple things where we've added a couple extra fields in the demo company where we said total hours, total service date. Very easy to make these types of adjustments as we go through, okay, and add fields. Whereas in GP, it was much more of a coding exercise. All right, by the same token, maybe we don't want to see the salesperson in this window or the tax category because, right, depending who's doing the entry, we don't need to do that. We can actually go back over here again and come down through and say, yep, well, what don't we want to see? I don't want to see the manual discount. I don't want to see the salesperson and I don't want to see the tax category. Just to use an example. I click OK, it adjusts all those out of there in addition. So it's very easy when you have these multiple window or multiple row field windows to make the adjustments to them. Overall, very straightforward. People adapt to this very quickly. They can make the system much more efficient for themselves. Okay. You'll notice here we have the financial tab. This is where we have certain things like, the GL drill down. So this will take me back to the GL transaction from here. So this is the GL transaction is created from this transaction. So, oh, hang on. My browser timed out on me a little bit. So you'll see the GL transaction from here. So this is the debits and credits that were created. Very similar to what you can do in GP from the transaction. There's just another button to kind of click on. But this is a little more natural because it's not kind of a hidden button. It's much more in front of you because it's the financial piece. And you can see here, did we print it? Did we email it? Those kind of things are all right in front of us. The emailing is built into this and it's done from within Acumatica. So if you change email systems, it's just stored there. Okay, so that sounds like a minor detail, but when GP with email, if you want to email an invoice, it's actually done from within a certain process, but it's using your Outlook. So the Outlook actually is the one that holds the history of that email. Okay. Now within Acumatica, that's an advantage because as you use different machines, change websites for your or change email systems, etc., it's very easy for that to all travel with you. Okay. With that being said, to give you an idea what it looks like, if I want to go in here and email it, it's relatively straight to email. I can click on send email. Okay, and away it goes. And there's a couple different ways this can be done, but in this case here, I have it pop up so that it will give me an opportunity to edit it before I send it. All right, oh, that didn't work again. I'm having trouble with my links. So I'm going to just do that one more time. And so you'll see here that it fills in the information to who it's to. I'm going to put in my own email address and go from there, and I can make any adjustments to it. Test email, right? And then say, please review. Relatively straightforward. And we'll see the details. What this is going to do is when I send this, okay, what this is going to do is send the email out. And with that being said, what happens is then we have, if I refresh the window, okay, you'll see now I have an activity up here that this email was sent. This is the email. This is how it views that it's been sent within Acumatica. And it shows you basically whatever has been sent. It'll show you what it references, etc. In addition to that, typically it would show the file. So that's how that would typically work. It's not showing it for some reason in this case, but it gives you a relatively straightforward way to do those emails for that. On the other side of things, what you'll see is that the email shows up in Outlook just like it normally would to whoever's on the other side or Gmail, etc., whatever they happen to have for an email address. So that's relatively straightforward, very easy to do, see the history, okay? There's also the ability to have notes, and we could do that within GP as well. You can have transaction notes, again, up to 32,000 characters. The one thing that we can do that's a little different here is we have the ability for the note to be established so that when we, on the customer, we could actually have a note when we create a new transaction for the customer that would pop up with that note. So I click here and click notes, you'll see add pop-up note. And I'm going to say, please contact Jim before sale, right? Very straightforward. Click OK. So what's going to happen with that, and this is kind of an additional feature, if I go back and I enter a new transaction for Brasky, okay, and I'm going to show you something we can't do in GP as well, is I can actually copy this transaction. So if I click copy and then I hit plus, and you can do this with sales orders, purchase orders, etc., and then I can paste the whole transaction. Okay. Now with that, it updates the date and things like that along the way as we go through it. It's not hard, but it does a few things like that where it will update. Notice here it pops up with a note though as soon as it creates it. Please contact Jim before sale. And we just created that. So it's relatively straightforward. Click save. I've just created a new transaction based on the original. I can then take this and say, you know what, this was really, um, 3 hours, and that will adjust that. And then this was 25 hours, just use an example. And this was, shouldn't even be there. We can take that one away. Click, cancel that, delete it, click save. Away we go. We've created another one. Okay. So that's a little bit different how the new system works compared to the old. All right. So it's very easy to do these entries, etc. Again, address updates. Again, if it's overridden for this particular transaction, you can see the taxes, commissions if appropriate. Approvals is something that GP doesn't have at all, really. It has kind of a really baseline. There's some third parties that do some of that. But within Acumatica, there's approvals for things like general ledger entries, ARAP entries, sales orders, purchase orders, many, many entries within the system. Creation of some records like customers and things like that. Also can have approvals attached to them. So the nice part about it is you can very easily take a look at it and see that approval history in here is necessary. Okay. Discounts, again, if that was appropriate. If you have a credit card payment, basically that requires a third-party product within GP. Within Acumatica, it's built-in functionality. And there's a couple different options actually beyond some of the built-in functionality. So you can see here, I can put in the, if I had it set up, I could put in the processing center, and then basically the payment information would apply here. Then applications is where we'd see basically has it been paid or not. So you can see here very quickly and easily, I can go from one thing to the other. And again, this all started from the dashboard, which I'm going to hit the home here, brings me back to the dashboard. So the dashboard has become kind of integral reporting, but also kind of that working piece that works with you right away. Now, with this, if you want to see certain things, maybe you don't want to see over 90 days, I can actually click that. It'll show me just the two. Maybe I want to see just without current. I can very easily take those and adjust those. Same thing here. Okay, I can very easily take a look at these different cash position. These are different cash accounts actually. And if I wanted to take one out, I could actually take it out. I'm going to take this one out. You'll see here how you can very easily adjust the presence and the view that you're looking at very quickly and easily, and go down through. And there's different types of graphics. And again, they have drill downs on them so you can see the detail. So the idea is very powerful as far as getting to your data. Remember, I said that was one of the bigger parts is getting to your information. Again, this drills back to GL. Now, keep in mind, if security said, hey, you don't get to see that particular view or income statement, income and expense, if you didn't have security to it, you would see basically a lock on here instead of the income and expense along the way. The dashboards are used in a lot of different ways. You can see here the different pieces there. Okay, so if you notice here, if I was just doing accounts payable, you can see very easily how that would work. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. It's not difficult, but it gives you kind of those, okay, what do I need to see? I can click on it, look at this. This has documents on hold. It's like, why is that on hold? Oh, that looks okay. I can actually come in here, look at it, and say, you know what? It looks okay to me now. Make any final adjustments if I want to. Okay, if I want to post it, I can then take and remove hold and release. And release is basically posting within Acumatica. Within GP, the thing that you found, oops, things are got an error in here, what I've got. So that didn't post, it's still balanced. But the idea is within GP, to get the some of the technology to work for reliability. So like if you got disconnected in the middle of a post, you end up having to do batches within GP. And within the batches, then you can enter your transactions, release the batch, and then if the batch had a problem, it would roll back. And then you could basically come back in and repost it when everything was working again. Acumatica, because it was originally designed for the web or in the cloud, what ends up happening is transactions are basically posted transaction by transaction. You either went through or it didn't. If it didn't go through, it's automatically rolled back. You can just select it again if you get disconnected from the internet. You know, maybe you're doing work in your car, somebody's driving, not you, somebody else is driving the car, and you're doing work on the way and you get disconnected for a moment. It comes back and basically you can just repost it. It's no big issue. Now with that, we showed how to post one at a time. With GP, you could do that. The problem is you didn't have that built-in rollback if there was a problem. If you got disconnected during that post of that one transaction, you would actually end up with a scenario where could have a damaged data. Okay, within Acumatica, it takes care of that. You can also post things and release them in mass. You don't have to do it one at a time, so it's relatively straightforward. Okay, so that gives you kind of a quick idea. If I take a look at the dashboards here and how that works a little bit differently, notice that the dashboard I started at here was the AP clerk. Notice it's designed for the AP clerk. Okay, if I click another dashboard and maybe we're going to do a warehouse manager, again, this will show him things like what orders he needs to pull for shipment that are ready to go, that are due to be shipped, those types of things. So those things all kind of happen along the way. And with that, I haven't touched some of these screens in a while, so it's taking a little while on my demo system to come up, but it gives you kind of the rough idea of how that would work. All right, so those are some of the bigger factors of things that are different between the two products. You can definitely see how the work look and feel is different, and it gives you kind of an idea of kind of what you're looking at. Okay, some things are a little easier to use than others, just like any other system, but people find this very easy to use. There can be things that you couldn't do before. It automatically connects to like UPS, FedEx, and things like that. When I say automatically, you have to put in some account codes and do some things like that. But once it's connected, it's built into the system. And that sounds like a minor detail, but it's actually something that's a third-party product with GP. So a lot of things that used to be third-party products have been brought in to the product itself. That being said, there are third-party products for Acumatica, just like there is for GP. Sometimes it's about specific industries. Sometimes it's a different way to do something. Maybe it works better for you. So for example, maybe you're a manufacturer and you do limited manufacturing, very simple bills of material. And maybe kits are just not quite enough, but you need a bill of material that's a little bit more full-bodied, but you don't really need to manage and schedule and things like that. There are third-party products that are simpler for managing just simple work orders for manufacturing, for example, other things like that along the way. Whereas GP didn't, their manufacturing module had some add-ins as well, but they were more limited. And so what you'll find is there's kind of a broader scope here that is kind of going on and is what's overall functionality. And to give you that kind of idea, if we take a look at more items, you can see here all the different pieces that are available with that. So for example, if you're dealing with multi-currency, we can have it automatically pull down the rates every day, so it automatically create the transactions to U.S. currency for U.S.-based company. There's on a module within Acumatica that allows for multiple base currencies. So if you have 4 organizations and you can have multiple base currencies, so one might be based in U.S. dollars, another one might be based in Canadian currency or euros, etc., depending upon how you work. So a lot of these pieces kind of happen there. There's also a built-in CRM. So instead of having a tower for ERP and then having a CRM product like you would with GP typically, it's all kind of built in when you kind of expand that into like marketing and tracking opportunities and things. Okay, they both do sales orders and things like that fairly well. Okay, so it's not a scenario where there's any huge issues there. It's just different, and we have the shipping part of it built in. So to give you an idea, that's what that kind of looks like, to give you that kind of thought process of how different it is. Okay, so if I go back to GP for a second, you notice here, if I click on finance, I click on journal transactions. If I click on fixed assets, you'll notice that it's spread out. If I click on bills and adjustments, basically the vouchers, you'll see listings of vouchers. Whereas it's kind of where you need it to be, okay? The difference here is within GP, if I go back to GP for a second, okay? What ends up happening there is that I stop the share, go back to the share GP, and 3. Yep. And you'll see that with GP, this ends up, everything goes back through the one funnel, so to speak. So it's not built in throughout. So if I click on sales and I want to look at sales orders, right? If I go over here to my menu and pull up transactions, I'm going to just drag that over here so you can see it better. Click on sales transaction entry. You'll see here that it doesn't come up with a listing. Now I can do a lookup of document numbers and things like that. So you'll notice that it's kind of a short list that's here for this. I only have so many invoices here, but it gives you kind of that short list. In this case, if I was going to do a order and do a lookup, you'll see that I only have one order in here in the test company. So you get kind of a rough idea. Well, let me phrase that, in this batch. So forgot about batches. So you can see here, this is how the lookup would work. And you notice I don't see the customer number, our ID here. All I see is the order number. Okay. Now, if I need to find it by name, okay, you'll see that it's a little bit different how that works. Okay. And so with that, I can click here and I can do additional sorts, click on customer ID to find it. Okay. And then I can pick it. So that's how the lookups work. It's not as smooth as you'd like it to be. If I click new, okay, and save to create a new one. Okay, yes, we're gonna say yes. Okay, we go to this. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry, it's my fault. Okay, if I wanted to add another one, I can let it here. Now, if I want to do add a customer, oops, hang on a second, I clicked through. Okay, so if I want to add a customer to create a new one, you'll see here that I can find it by customer ID very quickly. Okay, if I know it. So if I start typing American, right, and then tab, you'll see that it narrows it down. It doesn't think as hard as the other does. Now, if I want to do it by name, though, I click on name, I can do the same thing. I can start typing American, right, like so, and hit tab, and it takes me to the first one. Notice it still shows everything else. To give you an idea how they look within Acumatica, I'm just going to bounce back here again. Sorry about the going back and forth. Okay, it's a little bit different. So if I go to the sales order window, right, you'll see here I'm going to sales orders. We have a list. Okay, when I want to find a particular customer, okay, and say I want to find the brass key, right, and if I just start typing brass at the top, you'll see that it narrows it down to that customer's order numbers. Okay, if I know their PO number, right, I can start typing it. So I can type in 123. We can see if it's there, and I probably use this in quotes along the way somewhere. But you get kind of the idea. It's very easy to do that. Actually, I don't have the PO number in here, so let me just add that real quick. And that's the customer order number. Okay. Remember I said you could easily adjust these. I want that to be over by the description over here. So we'll do that. So we're going to take it again, drag and drop it over here so we can see it. Okay. So we can very quickly and easily see that in the list wherever we want it. If I start typing in, 090, you'll see that it pulls up everything with a 090. So it could be transaction numbers, could be a number, order amount. You notice here though, it pulled up the customer order number very quickly and easily. And if I want to look at that, then I just click on it. So it's a little bit different how that works. If I'm doing a search for a customer, if I want to create a new sales order, okay, so it's a little bit different, kind of like what we did there before where we need to do that. I can do the same thing. And if I know the customer's in here, I can put in their PO number, whatever it is. And if I know the customer, okay, I can put in, like, say it's USA bartending. I can just start typing it. You'll notice that the code is a bartending or a bartend, okay? USA bartending school, and anything with USA and it comes up, okay? So I can say, if I take a look at this and I just want to start typing Crabtree, right? I can just start typing it. You notice it narrows it right down. You notice it does it based on both, so it makes it very easy to look for. In addition to that, if I can't find it that way by the name or the other, I can do a lookup this way. There's more data again where I can actually look by city, state, zip, etc. It's amazing, how much more open this is along the way. And again, I can just start typing like this too. So if I start typing and say, ABC, you'll see that it narrows it down to the customers that have ABC somewhere in their code. All right. To select that, I just double click on it or I click select and it fills in. And again, you kind of go down the list. Okay. So makes it very easy. The other thing that's a little different within Acumatica is you notice we have this customer up now. I can actually see the invoices and memos by clicking on this on the side that are already there for this particular customer. I think, anyway. Why is that not working? Maybe I got to click save first. Sorry. Okay, let's try that. There we go. So now we can see other invoices and memos that are out there for this particular customer already. And in this case, there aren't any, relatively straightforward. If I look at customer details, I can actually see the customer details that go with this. And so this will show me kind of the pieces that they have going on. So they have an open invoice out there for a certain amount, includes child accounts. So that's why it didn't show before, shows now. If I show all documents, it'll show me the history of all the transactions for this one. And I can include unreleased documents, which this isn't going to show yet because this is a sales order, not an invoice. And this is looking at invoices, basically. Okay. So you can very easily, quickly adjust that. If I want to look at that transaction, I can. All right. If I want to see more of it on the screen, I can click here, opens it up, and I can see that very easily. Okay. And bring it back. I can close it, etc. So it gives me that opportunity to see these different pieces of information. By the way, something I didn't point out is if I show all the transactions, I'll show all documents. I can actually still narrow this down. Maybe I still only want to see the date of April 1st, right, to April 30th, okay, and click OK. These filters work throughout the system, okay? So it's not like it's in one place like it is in GP and just Smart List. So it's a very different thought process as to how it works and how it functions, all right? So that's some of the other key pieces. To kind of wrap this up, I just want to give you kind of that feel for that ease of use. It is a very natural product to work in. After a couple of weeks, people have a hard time going back to GP when they have to look things up, say, for historical purposes, or to compare when they're getting in the training and things. It gets very useful to know how these lookups work and how those kind of pieces of data are literally available almost instantaneously. So it's very different than how GP functions that way. And it's not that GP is a bad product. It's just that newer designs, newer technology has helped make that a lot better. Okay, so now we're going to come back to kind of the boring part of the process again of kind of describing a little bit more of who we are. Okay, so I'm Jim Koshar. I've been the one talking and babbling for the last 30, 40 minutes or so. We have Lisa's not here. She was not able to make it. Sam got called out a few minutes ago. So it's a scenario where basically, you can see I have quite a bit of experience in working with different industries as well as working in the ERP marketplace for a long period of time. That becomes an important piece in who you work with, okay? So, I grew up in manufacturing and construction before I started doing consulting work, and I've been doing consulting work now for 35 years. So I've been doing it a couple of years, worked with quite a few different organizations, have done over the years roughly 375 implementations. Some were very small, some were larger, some took multiple years, some were, 2 months. So it depends upon what's really kind of going on there. All right. Lisa's been with us since 1996. Okay, so that's a little while as well. Sam has as well. Sam has been here 1 month before Lisa. So just as a trick. So that being said, she has a background in distribution and finance and project. And she's kind of expanded that over the time with us, but that's where her background was before joining us. And then Sam has worked in a variety of organizations, some larger. He had a multinational entity, very large, where he was responsible for designing the general ledger and chart of accounts for the organization in the 1980s, working mainframes and all. To give you an idea, I've been through 4 generations of systems. Basically, I started out my first real jobs actually had manual systems, went to mainframes and minis back in the 80s, then to text-based PCs, and then graphical PCs with Windows and Mac, and then more Windows. And then from there, we went into the cloud. So it's been 3 or 4 generations. Each one have had their pluses, minuses. So far, I've been, kind of amazed how well the cloud has actually worked out in the end for us. If we go a little bit further, Hudson River Computing has been around for 31 years. We have over 385 successful ERP implementations. It's actually over 400 now. We're gold for Acumatica. We Geographically, we cover pretty much U.S. Northeast. Um, our products currently are Acumatica and Dynamics. And you can see here the additions we do for Acumatica. All right. We'll talk a little bit about Acumatica now. I mentioned it a couple different times. They are strictly an ERP company. Okay. They are part of a multinational, multi-billion dollar company. But at this point, but they were actually, many of the founders actually came from either Salomon, Microsoft, GP, et cetera, along the way. So the three main founders back in the day started there. So they have an intense background in the mid-market ERP market. So they took things that they liked from each one, product-wise feature set. That's what they built in Acumatica over time, right? At its inception, here's what they thought, okay? They want to remain focused on small and medium-sized businesses, okay? Your definition varies a little bit, but basically it works out pretty straightforward, all right? Beyond that, if you get into it, they decide to use partners because it's really hard for an organization to both implement and maintain a product and then enhance it because it just takes a lot of resources, okay? And so that's how they developed their piece. And they were originally born in the cloud. Never was anything but a web-based product. Now, that being said, if you have a industry that you're in or a preference that you want this installed on premise, it is actually sold that way as well. Okay. 96 to 97% each year end up going cloud hosted through Acumatica, but it is optionally done other ways. Okay. You can do private cloud or you can do internally on premise. And they sell it all three ways. Acumatica is unique in the sense that they actually listen to customers. And that sounds like a minor detail, but if you've worked with some larger organizations over time, you've kind of discovered that they kind of lose touch with their customer base over time and don't really understand. It takes longer to get releases out and things like that. Acumatica is still, they're big enough where they can, kind of have that bigger company piece to that where they have the capital and things. However, they're still small enough where the people can actually hear you and you can get a hold of those people. And, I've had quite a few conversations from the top on down, CEO down about either product or something we're working with or ways to do things a little bit differently. And it's not just me, it's partners and customers. If you go to Acumatica Summit, you have access to virtually anybody in the organization that happens to be there. So CEO, product managers, et cetera. Whereas in Microsoft's world, when you went to those conferences, they were so large, a lot of times they would be kind of hidden away. Now, that being said, when GP started, okay, back in the late 80s and 90s, okay, and they were an individual company up in Fargo, North Dakota, you had that then, okay? And then for a while with Microsoft, you had it, but over time, that became changed, okay? And so it's not a bad or good thing, it's just a change in personality, and it happens with a lot of larger companies. And part of it with Microsoft is, ERP, while they have ERP, it's never their primary focus compared to their other products like Windows and Office and, Windows servers and things like that. And now the cloud servers and, et cetera. So the ERP it's a secondary product for them. So it's kind of one of those things where sometimes while Acumatica has the capital, they don't invest as much as they possibly could compared to like Acumatica. And that's not a bad or good, but what it means is that when they have releases of the product, you see a lot more feature set improvements and additional functionality as they hear about it. So that's how the products kind of keeps expanding with that. One of the things that you see happen with the cloud-driven businesses is that because the integration is a lot easier because it's going through like web services and other methods like that versus kind of writing into SQL or using in GP, you had eConnect and things like that, which, had some of that web service, but it was kind of slow and limited to where you could actually write to. And here, because of that, you can actually have a system where just kind of the transition that people have gone from, analog businesses where they have siloed systems, GP might be a siloed system, might not be, depending upon what you really are implementing. The modern technology at one point, GP was the modern technology. Okay. And, it's a great product. Client server they were kind of one of the standard bearers back in the 90s. Okay. And early 2000s. So the technologies kind of shifted and they weren't able to very easily because the way the technology was built, it didn't allow for them to easily migrate it. So with Acumatica, the way they built the technology, it's very easy for them to update the technology on an ongoing basis as necessary. It's all component based, and they can just take out a component, put a component in without affecting all the code for the rest of the system and things like that. Additionally, they have a depth of functionality. So everything from financial reporting to in financial statements up to field service, construction, manufacturing, distribution, barcoding, etc. Those are kind of the major items. It has things like fixed assets and things as well. So it's got kind of a broader base. But there's smaller things like, for example, in accounts payable, you can actually drag and drop in a invoice and from a PDF, and basically it will actually read the PDF and try to bring in the entry for you. And it's got AI built into that, so it can build up and over time get better and better at bringing in those invoices. So, the first time you're bringing, et cetera. So it's different pieces. So it's that connected system. It's broad enough, right? Which allows you to become a digital business where you get to the point where you need less and less and less paper or none. Okay. So the idea of it is you can actually get all the way there where people are looking to get to, whether it's on a tablet, a desktop, a phone. Okay. So that's kind of the way that works and how it structures. To give you an idea, Acumatica has, this slide's a little old. They're the fastest growing cloud ERP product out there. They have over 12,000 customers at this point. They're active customers. Okay, they're not in implementation, they're active customers. And you can see here, they have 270 ISVs for various third-party products. Some are various reporting tools. Some are things like, Smartsheet, where you can integrate to that. So there's different things that are out there with that. Okay, you can see here's a bunch of dollars transacted through Acumatica in their hosted environment. And then you can see here that net promoter score is plus 32. To give you an idea, what that means is basically it's a number of people that would recommend the product on a scale. And with that net promoter score, 32 is very high for an ERP product. And it's one of the highest in the industry. And to put that in perspective, GPs is about a 9 right now. And that doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that people are out there excited about the product where they are here. The other thing that makes Acumatica unique is they actually have a customer bill of rights. And there's a couple pieces that are important. One is you know exactly what you're purchasing. Okay, and that sounds like a minor detail, and sometimes when you're getting it, it can be very difficult to determine, okay, what do I need to own or what do I own? Okay. Secondarily, the other part that's kind of unique is that you have unlimited user access. What that means is they don't license by user. Okay, they license by volume and functionality. Okay, so you're paying for what you use. Okay, so over time, it becomes a scenario where if you need another user for approvals within the system, for example, to approve purchase orders or vouchers as they come in, etc., the answer is you don't have to worry about buying another license for them or trying to do a workaround. It's like, hey, it's not worth it for Bob to approve one purchase order a month. Let's actually just have George do it instead. And George doesn't know anything about what he's approving, but he does it anyway. So that unlimited user access allows for that, those types of functionalities, but also because it allows for the ability for them to do some of the entry they might need to do, or review information in the reporting or dashboards. So it becomes a very important piece that people don't think about. It is great to have all the dashboards, but the right people need to have access to them. If you're not worried about licensing, it makes it easier. The other part in here is that they have a guarantee where the pricing will only go up so much per year. There's nothing in there. Their pricing will remain fair. Lastly, and they have other ones here, obviously, the other thing that I find important is that you own and access your own data. And what happens with that is if you have some of the other cloud systems, and you had this in premise space, you owned your own data, it was on your site, it was there, right? With the cloud, that becomes a little trickier. And with Acumatica, they've done a good balance of that, meaning that they're hosting your system generally. But the nice part about it is you can actually do a snapshot of your data and download it, install a local trial copy of Acumatica, okay? And it's easy to install, and basically load that data into your system on your trial basis, and then basically you have a local copy of your data. And Acumatica is very rare with that in the cloud ERP market, where they allow you to do that very easily. that doesn't sound like a big deal, and nor do we want you or think that you're going to plan to leave Acumatica once you're in it. But if it does happen, maybe you get bought out, and hey, they're using NetSuite, and we're one of 20 other divisions. The answer is we're changing. You don't get a choice. Whether you love the product or not, doesn't matter. Happens, right? If that does occur, the nice part about it is you can bring in kind of the key pieces to move forward, beginning balances and things like that. But what this allows you to do is keep your historical data without having to continually pay Acumatica for it. You can install a local copy of it and then have access to it. And it's not in like a spreadsheet where you have to search for various things and it's hard. You're actually using the Acumatica interface still. So it's actually a very important piece. So those things become important. The industry recognition, they have won many of these awards over and over and over and over and over again. Okay, so with this, they've won the Cody Award multiple years. They are in the top of Nucleus. You take a look here. They always they always test in the top quadrant. Okay, and that becomes an important piece. They are continually striving. They spend a large amount of money to keep that going on their R&D. And unlike some other companies, to give you kind of a difference, Acumatica ends up spending about 70% of their revenue dollars on R&D to help improve the product going forward. Okay. Embedded integrations, these are things that are embedded in the system. So if you use like Power BI, Avalara Tax, Adobe, DocuSign can be integrated, is built in. You need an Adobe account for that, but you might need an outside account for it, but these integrations are all built in as you go, okay, right out of the box. So these things are there before you start, okay. Remote access, any device, anywhere you have internet access. They're actually in the process, and just like everybody, they're building up their AI. So AI is working now for help. They're doing it, I mentioned before, for OCR, bringing in PDFs for payables and things like that, and build some matching to purchase order receipts. Those types of things are coming and working. There's more coming. So that's on its way. We'll come down through here. Key points I kind of mentioned already: unlimited users, no per user fees, and then it's flexible. Okay, so it's how do you want to implement it, and then we can kind of go from there. And last but not least, what's the market for small and medium businesses in the United States? Okay, just to give you an idea, there's 32 million of them. It's roughly 43% of the US GDP, which is kind of amazing when you think about it. 2 out of 3 new jobs, are small entities, okay, or medium businesses. And then basically they provide half the patents, small and medium businesses. So that's kind of an important part. Their focus is this. It's important to recognize that they're focusing on you if you're a small and medium business. Okay, so I'd like to thank everybody for their time today. I hope that you received something out of this today to give you kind of a rough idea of how the products look, how they function a little bit differently. And if you want any more information, please reach out to us. My number is 518-452-9250. My extension is 11. My email address is jkoshar, so it's JKOSHAR @hrcom.com. Apologize for not having on the slide. I was doing some last minute things and I apparently took that out by accident. You can see my card here, but you can't read it. Maybe I changed the font by accident. Hope you guys have a great day, and I wish everybody well. Thank you very much now. Bye-bye.